proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority. Live in the studio, it's time for the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Live from Wings, etc. Hear the Coaches Show each week on SEMO ESPN 1220 and also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Also, watch the Red Hawks Coaches Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now, let's go live to Wings, etc. for the Red Hawks Coaches Show.
Welcome in the Red Hawks Coaches Show at Wings, etc. We're in the Cape Girardeau location, so if you have not made plans for lunch, we got plenty of room here. You can stop by. You can join us for lunch. Their daily half-pound lunch specials start at just $7.99, and their wings are just 69 cents on Mondays, so we invite you to stop by. If you're not in the mood for wings, they have a full menu, includes their freshly made burgers. They have wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs, and much more. And their appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears. Good food, great times, Wings, etc. And next week, by the way, we will be in the Jackson location. So we hope you make plans to join us at Wings, etc. every Monday for the Red Hawks Coaches Show. DQ Nicholas is going to join us here in just a few minutes. Red Hawks talented guard who had a nice game against Murray State on Saturday night. We're going to talk with him just a little bit later. The Atlanta, Georgia native, the Kansas City native, Coach Rick Ray is here. How about those Chiefs, Coach?
It's been a long drought. Just
50, half a century since they have been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been ironic if the Green Bay Packers had won that and you got the rematch of the first Super Bowl ever, Super Bowl one there. But, it's been a long time. It's funny, they had a graphic up about the teams in the drought in the Super Bowl. And then, obviously, you had the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions, like never.
I've never been there.
Yeah, and so my in-laws are from Flint, Michigan. And my wife is from Flint, Michigan. So my father-in-law is a huge Detroit Lions fan. So, and then also our assistant coach who's just walking in here, he's also a huge fan, being from Detroit. And so I sent him a screenshot of that about the never. So, I couldn't talk much because of the 49-year drought, but it feels really good for those guys to get to the Super Bowl.
It was so close last year of D. Ford jumping offsides, and the irony is D. Ford plays for the 49ers now.
Yeah, and I tell you, to be honest with you, I was rooting for the Green Bay Packers to get there because I just think the San Francisco 49ers are going to be a huge problem for us. What they do best is what we are poor at, which is the run defense.
But yesterday they held Derrick Henry to 69 yards. That was a pretty good performance.
Yeah, and the key to that, I think, also is I thought the Titans did a poor job of playing to their strengths. I know they got down a little bit, but I really thought they went away from the run and started to pass a little bit too much. And I know that obviously you're down, so you want to change some things. But, if that's what you do best, that's the way you're going to score. So I thought they got away with it. But, Shanahan, and it goes all the way back to his dad when he was with the Denver Broncos, that zone block scheme that they have, it really doesn't matter who's at running back. Denver Broncos always had a 1,000-yard rusher no matter who it was because they're so good at scheming and at defensive runs. So I'm really concerned about that. And the other part of it is defensively, they've got 4 defensive linemen who can get to the quarterback. They don't need to blitz in order to get to the quarterback. So when you got 4 first-round picks on your defensive front line, you're going to have a problem there. So I'm concerned about that game.
Raheem Mostert.
Purdue.
This is his 7th NFL team. So you talk about it, literally a journeyman has one of the greatest rushing days in NFL playoff history. 220 yards, 4 touchdowns. Who has ever heard of Raheem Mostert?
Yeah, he's actually played wide receiver at Purdue, if you can believe that. He's kind of one of those slot guys that you kind of put in space and make plays. But they always show, like, the miles per hour of the running backs for the San Francisco 49ers and how fast they accelerate and hit the gaps is really amazing. So, yeah, I'm concerned about that. But I guess we got 2 weeks to try to figure some things out.
Yeah, well, what is kind of cool is the Ohio Valley Conference has a connection. First of all, Kyle Shanahan's father, Mike Shanahan, went to Eastern Illinois University. Jimmy Garoppolo, Eastern Illinois University. So there is a little bit of an Ohio Valley Conference tie to this Super Bowl.
Yeah, and what about the guy who was calling the game, Tony Romo for the Chiefs, Eastern Illinois as well, too. Then you always go back to, like, what if Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints would have been there. Same thing, Eastern Illinois. So they've got a long lineage of quarterbacks there.
And Brad Childress, who was the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, he was an Eastern Illinois guy. At one point, they had 3 guys because Shanahan was in Washington, Childress was in Minnesota, and Peyton was down in New Orleans. 3 coaches from Eastern Illinois University, active NFL head coaches at the same time. That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, it really is. Wasn't Childress a long-time backup quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings?
Brad Childress. Are you thinking about Brad Johnson?
Brad Johnson. Okay,
and he won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So Childress, a really good offensive mind. I don't know how many years he was the head coach of the Vikings. But just watching Patrick Mahomes play, I mean, you've seen a lot of Kansas City Chiefs football. I mean, is that as good a player as Kansas City has ever had?
Yeah, I really think so. Obviously, you go back and you want to talk about the 2 best players probably in that lineage of our time. I mean, you go back and you got Willie Lanier and those guys like that, Lynn Dawson. I really didn't get a chance to see those people play. But the 2 definitive players to me in my era,
Marcus Allen.
Well, no, it's been Derek Thomas.
Okay.
I mean, Derek Thomas to me defensively was just, I mean, I think he still holds a record for sacks in a game when he got 7 versus Stephen DeBerg.
He was a Lawrence Taylor-like guy.
Exactly.
That's how he affected the game.
Yeah, and then I think it's Patrick Mahomes. I just think he's a generational player. And for us being a fan, we've got to win the Super Bowl here in these next 2 years because if we don't, then we got to pay Patrick Mahomes all that money. He's playing on a rookie contract. And that's when teams are really good, when they're paying that quarterback who was really good, that rookie salary contract. But now when you go back and you have to pay him all the money, which he justly deserves, it's going to be a $200 million contract. And then now all of a sudden your salary cap is taking a huge hit, and the guys that you need to can play around him, you can't pay anymore. So we've got to do it here the next 2 years because I think we're really going to get hurt by that.
Well, keep this in mind as well. Just stepping away from being a Chiefs fan, wouldn't it be surprising if Patrick Mahomes doesn't win multiple Super Bowls? I mean, that's how good that guy is.
Well, I tell you what, I'm a harken back to
I know you don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, and so to me, I know people measure Super Bowls. I mean, quarterbacks by their Super Bowls, and I totally get that. But the most talented quarterback that I ever saw was Dan Marino, and I didn't think it was even close. And so it goes back to, hey, Dan Marino gets to the Super Bowl his second year, and he ends up losing. And so everybody, hey, it's no big deal. Dan Marino is so talented. He's got all these weapons around him. He'll be back. Obviously never got back. And so I don't want to say that. And all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes, who is so talented, and you got people around him, I don't want to say that. And, yeah, he'll get back because we've seen a really talented quarterback in Dan Marino get there his second year and never make it back.
Dan Marino never had a running game.
No.
I mean, go back and look at those Dolphins teams. They just didn't have a running back. I mean, they had a guy named Delvin Williams. That may be, during his time, that may be like the only 1,000-yard rusher the Dolphins ever had when Marino was a quarterback.
And to be honest, though, I don't know if Dan Marino ever wanted a rushing game either.
He wanted to throw it 60 times.
I think he wanted to throw it every single time, too, so I don't think that really bothered Dan Marino.
And really, if you think about it now, I know Andy Reid sometimes gets criticized for forgetting about the run game, but they ran the ball 27 times. They didn't have a whole lot of success running the football, but they ran the football 27 times yesterday. So it wasn't just, let's let Patrick Mahomes sling it all over the yard.
Yeah, it's a little troubling, though, the fact that your leading rusher in the 2 playoff games has been Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So I think we need to rectify that a little bit.
How about that epic run right before halftime? I mean, that you're going to see that highlight for a lot of years. That was an unbelievable play.
Yeah, I thought for sure that, first of all, I thought he was going to run out of bounds.
So did I.
Then I thought he stepped out of bounds. And then I don't know who the defender is, but number 35, he ought to be embarrassed for himself. I mean, because you're trying to strip a quarterback at the goal line because you failed to tackle him. I mean, just think about that. You're a defender in the NFL, and you failed to do your job, and you're resorted to now, I'm just going to try to strip the ball of him because I couldn't tackle a quarterback.
And it came loose a little bit. You see him juggle it there, but and some people forget Patrick Mahomes is not a little dude. He is 6'3", 230. That's why he was able to carry those two defenders into the end zone.
Yeah, he is a big guy. And the other part of it, too, is he's got a little bit of quickness to him. So anytime things break down, you can see on those 3rd and 7 type plays when obviously you're trying to double-team Tyreek Hill, you're trying to double-team Travis Kelce. Now all of a sudden he's got run lanes, and he takes advantage of those.
And when Sammy Watkins is your third option, you got a pretty good receiving core.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that this is the first touchdown that Sammy Watkins has had since the opening game.
Really?
Yeah, they said that, and I got to go back and look at that to make sure it's accurate. But I think since the opening game of the season, that was Sammy Watkins' first receiving touchdown.
Now he's racked up yards,
Yes.
but maybe not just touchdowns. That's because Tyreek Hill and Kelsey hog all the touchdowns.
Exactly.
All right, so as we get ready for the Super Bowl, how nervous are you as a Chiefs fan?
Well, it was funny. My wife was asking me, do I want to have a Super Bowl party? And I'm like, no, I do not want to have a Super Bowl party because I don't want to see people see me that depressed if we end up losing it. Now, if we'd have played the Green Bay Packers, I probably would have a Super Bowl party, but I just don't want to do that. I'm really nervous about how good the San Francisco 49ers are. I just think what they do best is what we struggle with, which is our run defense. And I just think those 4 defensive linemen can put pressure on Patrick Mahomes without any sort of a blitz, so they can kind of have a little bit of a spy back there. So I just think they're really good. And the way they've been playing so far, the only way you have a chance if somehow you stop the run game and make Garoppolo be more of a 8 passes for a whole game type guy.
All right, this is the first time we've had a chance to talk since the College Football National Championship. I know you're rooting for the Clemson Tigers, but it was the LSU Tigers. What were your thoughts on the big game?
Yeah, it kind of played out like you thought it would. I think Clemson obviously is a really talented team. They got a great, offensive weapons. I didn't think Trevor Lawrence played very well.
He did not have a good game.
Yeah, but you know what? That kid, Derek Stingley Jr., that LSU cornerback, I mean, he is already at a kind of Darrelle Revis, like Deion Sanders type mode where people don't even throw to his side. They don't even bother. So he shut down one side of the field already. And so I just thought Trevor Lawrence kind of pressed a little bit, probably could have checked down a couple times and just wanted to make that extra play because you're trying to keep up with LSU and their scoring. But LSU is just, I mean, that may have been the most prolific offense that I've ever seen in my time. It's just like you pick your poison. I mean, they got so many different plays they can go to, and they got 3 wide receivers going to play in the NFL. And then Burrow is just so accurate. And then defensively, I mean, you still got guys in the cornerbacks out. Grant Delpit is going to be a first-round pick. I mean, Fulton got exposed a little bit, but I thought, Derek Stingley might be the first pick in the NFL draft when it's time for him to come out. Somebody will probably take a quarterback, but you're talking about a true shutdown corner. So I thought, what happened and what transpired is kind of the way you thought it would happen. Clemson's going to score some, but just LSU is just too good. They're a juggernaut on the offensive end.
Isn't that weird? Because under Les Miles, no one ever used the word juggernaut and LSU offense in the same sentence.
Yeah, it's hard because Les Miles, I know everybody want him to change, but when you're just losing one game a year, for him it's like, why would I change? Because I don't want to take a risk and all of a sudden we're losing 2 or 3 games a year. But obviously, it'll be interesting to see what happens with LSU because I think they end up losing 9 players that declared early for the NFL draft.
That's a lot of players.
Then they lose Joe Brady, who's going to be the offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers. And then obviously Dave Aranda, is now no longer there, and he was the defensive coordinator and takes a head coaching job at Baylor. So they took a lot of hits, not just personnel-wise, but also on their coaching staff.
All right, let's transition from football to college hoops. What a game we had at the Show Me Center on Saturday night with Murray State. You fall in overtime, 96-91. What were your initial impressions as that game was winding down, and what were the things that you had to say to your basketball team who fought their guts out in that game?
Yeah, disappointed in the loss, obviously. You never want to walk away talking about moral victories, but just really proud of the fact that the way our guys competed and showed what they're capable of doing. And we showed a lot of film of the first Murray State game and some of the Austin Peay game where I just thought physically we were getting punked out. We didn't go and take on the physicality of the game. And to me, I got into this is not about X's and O's or the way we set up our skill level. It was just our inability to embrace the physicality that Austin Peay played with, that Murray State played with. And that's the thing that I was most disappointed in, because to me, we got to make sure that we're doing the things necessary in order for us to be competitive, and it had nothing to do with our offense. It had everything to do with us not wanting to take on the physicality that those teams played with. And so that's the thing that I thought that Sage Tolbert set the tone in the first play of the game when he went down there and posted up and he blasted the guy. And it's our whole adage of, like, he who hits first wins. And then also you have the thing I told him about the Mike Tyson. Everybody has a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. And so now how are we going to react when Murray State comes back with their physicality? So when it was all said and done, I just wanted us to be a physical team, and I didn't want us to back away from that physical matchup.
Well, you certainly were physical with them. How physical was the basketball game? Now, I know you've coached a lot of games, so you probably don't remember the total amount of fouls called in every particular game. But do you think you've ever been involved with a game that featured 64 personal fouls and 75 free throws attempted?
I've been in games where there's probably been that many fouls that were not called, though, because I know when I was at Purdue in the Big Ten back in the Smash Mouth days, I mean, we fouled every possession. I mean, we fouled all the time at Purdue, and they said, they can't call every single foul. And so we just fouled every single time. But I've never been involved, I don't believe, in a game where it was actually that many fouls called and people went to the free throw line that much.
It was unbelievable. I mean, 64 personal fouls. I texted Associate OVC Commissioner Kyle Schwartz and asked him what is the all-time record in an Ohio Valley Conference game, because I was curious about most fouls called. He said they don't keep track of the combined fouls, but the most fouls ever called on one team was 40. So I got to believe that 64 has got to be close to a record.
Yeah, I would think so. And they probably don't keep track of that stat for a reason.
On purpose?
Yes,
right.
On purpose. But I would think that was probably an OVC record, unfortunately.
All right. I don't know how many games that you have tossed your sport coat, but the sport coat got tossed in this particular game.
Yeah, I was just hot. I was getting a little warm there, so that's all that was about. It was funny. My director of basketball operations came up and told me after we got out of a timeout that the officials had issued me a warning.
They have issued you a warning.
Yeah,
what is that about?
I said, what does that mean? I mean, it's like a warning about what? And so obviously it's because of the way I took off my sport coat there. So. It is what it is. But
I have seen coaches teed up for throwing their sport coat, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I have seen that.
Now, it didn't happen to you. You didn't get
you
get teed up. In baseball, it's funny. In college baseball, they do an official warning, and the umpire will pull out his little notepad and write down a demerit for the coach as, okay, I've issued an official warning. But I don't think I've ever heard of it in basketball.
No. I've been around when I was at Indiana State. The head coach there, Coach Waldman, would say the most unimaginable things to referees the whole game, would never get a technical. He'd just keep getting warnings. But I've never been issued a warning. I'm really, glad that they didn't give me a technical, because obviously that had been poor on my part. It really been in a crucial part of the game that probably would have took away from us even having the chance to go into overtime.
Boy, in my opinion, I think you've got to hand it to Murray State's Tevin Brown. There are no more pressure-packed free throws than stepping to the line down 2 with 0.7 seconds left. If you miss it, you lose. You got to make them both, and the dude stepped up and hit those free throws.
Yeah, and I also want to say this, too. I thought our crowd was really unbelievable, not just in that instance, but I thought throughout the whole game, the attendance and sticking with us through we've had some tough games here at home, and so very well they could have stayed away, but I thought our crowd really gave a lot of energy to our players. I thought they were into the game. I know my son, he had his birthday party there, and he had his whole crew there, and I thought they were pretty vocal. I was sitting back watching tape, and I was seeing that little crew that he had there with him. So But it was just really fun to be in an environment like that. Now, we've got to do our job as coaches and players and make sure we provide a type of environment that people want to come out and watch us play. But it really made a huge difference with the type of crowd that we had and the way they got behind it. But going back to your point there, I thought it got really loud in those situations, and you know what's on the line. You miss one free throw, it's over with. You probably just don't have enough time to score with, I think, 0.8 seconds that was left. So, I mean, to his credit, he stepped up to the line and knocked him down.
And in that evening or afternoon, the 1999-2000 OVC championship team was honored. 3 of those players were back. Mike Branson was there. Emmanuel McCutcheon, Matt Morris were all there. They did a nice little video up on the scoreboard with Coach Garner and Rod Johnson. I mean, Roderick Johnson was a terrific player. That was a really good team. And did you get a chance to interact with those guys? And I know that you kind of challenge your team about, hey, let's go out and play hard for this particular team. They're honoring the only championship team. And you challenge your guys, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I did get a chance to be around them and interact with them. I had reached out to them all personally, hoping they could get back here. And I know everybody has travel and people have moved away. You got family, you got different obligations that you have. But then those guys also came to our shoot-around. But then after that, they came to our pregame meal, so I got a chance to be around them. And it was really refreshing to get a chance to talk about some of the old days and them seeing how much the campus has changed, what has athletics put into the weight room and just the dining and things like that. So they were really excited about to see the changes. But it was really fun to get a chance to interact with them, how it was to be coached by Coach Garner. But then I also talked to our guys about this being the only team that advanced on to the NCAA tournament, how they had won, the OVC championship. And so these guys are coming there and they want to come back. You want to make them proud to be a SEMO alum. And so I challenged our guys to make sure you play for them, but just play for pride when it's all said and done. Just play with pride.
Yeah, I know you weren't around back in those days, but the team before that, the 98-99 team, lost on a buzzer beater to Murray State in the championship game. This guy named Aubrey Reese hit a runner over 6'10" Bud Ely, banked it in, and that's how they lost the previous year. And then that team came back without Ely. They did this after Bud Ely. He's one of the greatest players ever at SEMO. The year after Bud Ely was when they won it, and Aubrey Reese was back for his senior year and went 1 for 18 from the field in that game. So you only get so much karma in this game, right?
Right, and actually those guys did talk about that, and that's something that's drove them, was that pain, that disappointment of what happened and transpired that previous season, that's something that really drove them to be great the next season. So it's interesting to see how people take those losses. Some people take those losses and then they go on a downward spiral. But some people take that and they use it as motivation and it ends up being something that really drives them in their next season.
The game Saturday with Murray reminded me of that double overtime thriller. It was Cameron Payne's freshman year. The football team was there. Coach Tuke had the football team there, and they were all behind the goal waving. Payne, no time on the clock. It's a tie game, so all he has to do is make one of 2 free throws, and he misses both of them. Cameron Payne, it's an NBA player. He misses both of them, and SEMO wins in double overtime. So, I mean, some of the games with SEMO and Murray State, I know that when you first got here, you probably heard, okay, Murray State and SIU, those are kind of rivalry games. But what is different about a rivalry game when you go into it? I mean, what's the mentality of the players and the coaching staff when it's a rivalry game like SEMO and Murray?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, guys know it because of the fan base. You're walking around in the community coming up to that game. There's people that's going to stop you in the grocery store. People are, hey, we got to get Murray or we got to get SIU. And it's legitimate, hate, going those. And it's so funny, even though now that I've left programs, I still have a disdain for those teams that were my rivals when I was there. So, when I was at Clemson, I still don't like South Carolina. When I was at Purdue, I still don't like Indiana. When I was at Mississippi State, I still don't like Ole Miss. It just stays with you. And so now, obviously, you got a situation where you got Murray State, you got SIU. Our guys know it because the community makes sure that they know it.
Well, the game transpired. It was just it was an unbelievable game in that you're down 17 points with 6 minutes to go in the first half of the basketball game, and you come back, and we thought it was tied at halftime. In retrospect, they went back, and I mean, I don't know if someone has statted this game. I don't know what the deal was with 41-40, and it was 41 apiece, because Jeff Hansa does a heck of a job statting a game, and the official book had it, 41-40. Jeff had it 41-41. Did anybody go back and check out that extra point?
I don't want to know.
Okay.
I don't want to know that answer. But I knew when they brought us over there, I knew it wasn't going to be good for us. I mean, I said this is going to be something that's going to end up being like we're taking away a point or something. But they said in those situations they have to go with the official scorebook. And so he tried to explain. I said, hey, you're taking away a point. I don't want to hear the rest of it. So the rest of it is immaterial to me.
So at least we thought it was tied at halftime. But how about the comeback? You're down 17. You just had some tough games. You weren't as competitive as you wanted to be against Austin Peay. You're down 17 at home to Murray State, who's won the league 2 years in a row and probably might win the league again. What did you see for your team to be able to rally and tie the game up at halftime after that?
Well, I think the first thing was that we did a great job of turning defense into offense, especially with some of the pressure that we put on after free throws. We were able to knock a couple balls loose and turn that into offense. And I thought that we got a huge spark out of Nigel Russell coming in off the bench and being a guy that knocked down a shot, got a transition layup, got a dunk in traffic, but gave us a spark there. And I think the other thing is Darius Agnew did a really good job of coming in and giving us a lift and giving us a presence that we didn't have. Now, you look at his stats and you say, well, what did he do? But just the fact that he was on the court after he had knee surgery. And so the way that he attacked his rehab and the way he approached everything about trying to get back on the court with the training room allowed us to not be small, because Quatarius Wilson was really having troubles as far as like having stomach problems, and he wasn't able to play the minutes that we needed him to play. So if we don't have Darius Agnew there, we're in a world of trouble against a team that's that physical like Murray State. So I thought those two guys gave us a huge lift. But I think the biggest thing when it was all said and done, we got some stops. We were able to knock some balls loose, and we turned that into offense.
Is Quatarius Wilson a marked man? It seems like if he breathes on somebody, it's a personal foul. And he gets so frustrated. I know he does, and I know you watch film and everything. But sometimes, do you have a reputation? Does it precede you with officials, or sometimes? You ever seen that in college basketball?
Well, I don't think at this level very much. I think you get some in the so-called high majors where you just on TV all the time. And then sometimes people negative reactions to fouls being called can affect. But I do want to go on record now. Q fouls a lot.
Yes, he does.
I mean,
he leads the team in fouls per minutes played.
Yeah.
I thought Sage Tolbert would be that guy, but it's not Sage.
No, we're in practice all the time, and he fouls a lot. So I don't know if he fouls as much as he's getting called for, but he does foul.
Well, it was a nice effort by Wilson in the basketball game. It's just it's a shame that you had 4 guys foul out. Now, when you have some ridiculous foul total of 64, some guys are going to foul out. But you're going into overtime, and all 3 of your bigs are on the bench fouled out of the game.
Yeah, and you never want any of your guys to foul out, but the fact that all the guys that fouled out were our front court guys, really put us in the bind. And we went zone there a couple possessions. We never played any possession of zone. We never even practiced it. We might do it as a scout team. We're trying to get ready for an opposing team. But to our guys' credit, they went out there and tried to figure some things out. But we had Isaiah Gable playing the 5 spot for us. We had Nigel Russell playing the 4 spot. So we were extremely small. And Murray State took advantage of that and knew that and pounded it inside.
Is that the dunk of the year by Nigel Russell? Two-handed dunk. I don't know if it made SportsCenter top 10. It should have. That's the greatest dunk of the season as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. We needed a lift. And I thought Nigel gave us a lift, and Nigel hadn't been playing very well up until the game. Austin Peay
He
came
gave you
in.
a lift in Austin Peay?
Yeah, and so he had a good week for us, and so we need that. I mean, we need all of our guys playing to their strengths and doing some of the things that we need them to do in order for us to be successful. And I thought he did a great job of that in these past 2 games.
Okay. You've seen Austin Peay twice. You've seen Murray twice. Who do you think's better?
Well, I would say Murray is a better team. I think Austin Peay has a better individual talent in Terry Taylor. So if you can find a way to combat Terry Taylor, I think Murray State has a little bit more overall talent. But if you let Terry Taylor get loose and get going, I mean, he's pretty special.
It was interesting in that game against you, Austin Peay, Terry Taylor. You could see how assertive he was early in the game, and when they got the big lead, I thought, he became more of a distributor. He wasn't, looking to go get his points. That kind of told me a little bit about Terry Taylor not being a selfish guy. I don't know, I don't know if he's selfish or not. We don't see him enough, but I thought it kind of spoke to his unselfishness that he didn't, try to go out and have a 40-point game.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think you can't be that good with his stats that he has because he's a very efficient player. He has a high field goal percentage, and when you have a high field goal percentage, to me that means that you know when to take your shot, when to attack, and then when to pass the ball as well too. And I think it's similar to, our John Morant's sophomore year. People were talking about the leap and the jump that he made as a basketball player. And I wasn't trying to be condescending, but I said I thought he was just good last year, but he had some people around him that needed the basketball, that wanted the basketball, and he was unselfish enough to, hey, I'm going to kind of get these guys a ball and get them in spaces, but then he didn't need to score. But I said I think John Morant could have had the same type of season he had his sophomore season, his freshman season, but he was unselfish and thought that, hey, let's get the ball to those other guys so we can be a good team.
I mean, because they had 2 of the top 5 scorers in the league in Jonathan Stark and Terrell Miller, right?
Yes, and I think he knew that, and he wanted to get the ball. And I think those guys needed to score in order for them to be good. And I think the personality of them is, hey, I need to get points or I might not give what I need to give. And so I think John Morant knew that as well, too.
Is Terry Taylor of Austin Peay, in your mind, the best player in the conference?
Well, obviously I haven't seen everybody yet, but I would say if you're just looking at stats, I would say yes.
And as far as how good is Tevin Brown for Murray State? I mean, he's just a sophomore.
Yeah, Tevin Brown was a guy that was just a spot-up shooter last year because of John Morant. And you knew he could really catch and shoot the basketball, but that was his label. Hey, he's going to catch and shoot, but he's not a guy that's going to create offense.
He looked like he was creating Saturday.
Yeah, and I think he's really either he didn't need that with John Morant being there last year, so he was a guy that just played off of John Morant and catch and shoot. But I think now he's either developed it or he already had it, and now he's a guy that's not just a catch-and-shoot guy. He's a guy that can create offense not just for himself but also for others.
So the schedule makers didn't do you any favors. You start off your conference season at Austin Peay, at Murray, home against Belmont, Tennessee State, who only has 2 conference losses at this point, and then you get Austin Peay and Murray again. Those teams are a combined 21-3. You have literally played the 4 best teams in the conference record-wise.
Yeah, now you don't want to use that as an excuse, but
the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah, there's no question about it as far as like the difficulties and schedules. We've had the hardest schedule in this batch of games right here to start off the season. So it's now what do we do from this point going forward, because you can't use that as an excuse, any longer. But I just thought it was set up the wrong way, irregardless of who we're playing. For us to play an OVC rival like Murray State within the first 6 games of the OVC schedule, and then also do those 2 games, not just here at home, but also at Murray State where the students are not there. I just think it's a disservice to that so-called rivalry.
And the thing is, do you think the conference needs to look at something like that when it comes to rivalries? Because there are rivalries. Murray State and Austin Peay have a rivalry, and SEMO and Murray State have rivalries. Don't you think that should be taken into account by schedule makers?
Yeah, no question about it. And I know the OVC has the mathematicians that come in and chart everything and put everything together. But there's got to be somebody there that when they see this, that they say, hey, we got to look at this because I think this could be bad for our conference and bad for home attendance for those particular teams. So to me, common sense got to come in play when you're looking at a schedule like that. And to me, I think we did a poor job as a league of making sure, hey, let's protect this rivalry and make sure we don't have it so close together, and then also having it when the students are not there.
DQ Nicholas is who we're going to talk to. Coach, tell us about the recruitment of DQ to Southeast Missouri State.
Yeah, DQ actually went to Scotland Prep, which is in Pennsylvania, and they were #1 team in prep school for a long time. They ended up losing at the very end, but they just had an unbelievable season. And I got a chance to watch him on film, and then also one of my assistants got a chance to watch him play a couple times in person, and he came to me. Then I had the opportunity to travel to Pennsylvania. Their season was over with, but they had open gym and they had pickup. And so sometimes in those open gym pickup situations, they're kind of a bad of evaluation because guys are not playing hard or they're not competing, so you don't get a chance to see what a young man is made of. But I thought the environment there at Scotland Prep was really competitive, and so I got a lot out of that so-called open gym pickup situation. The first thing is that I thought he competed. And I think he had to compete with the talent that he had around him. And then also I thought he really rebounded the ball well for a guard. So I just thought that he was a guy that was really athletic, really competed, and I thought he could come in and give us valuable minutes right away. The thing that you never know when you get around a young man is just like how much he cares about everything. And I've been in this business for, 25 years now. And I know at the end of the summer, he came into my office and he talked to me, and he actually thanked me for the opportunity of being here at Southeast Missouri State. And that's the first time ever that a young man has thanked me for, like, being on scholarship or being in the institution and being in the program. And that just meant a lot to me. And I said, hey, we've got something here because we got somebody who's actually appreciative of their opportunity and care about it, and I think he's going to make the most of it.
We got to get some sort of an endorsement deal at the Show Me Center with Dairy Queen, don't we? With DQ, we got to tie it in somehow, right?
I think Nate is here, so I'm gonna leave that in his capable hands because I don't want to offend somebody. I'm sure we've got a sponsorship with someone who's already in the ice cream business, but we want to make sure that's above my pay grade.
All right. When you have been on the recruiting trail, for those who don't know, you have been actively recruiting while you're trying to get ready for conference games. How's the recruiting going, and how many miles are you logging behind the scenes that people don't know about?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to take off tomorrow and head to Mississippi and see a junior college game there. And so it wasn't as bad when we're not in school. But once we get in school, the difficult part is getting back. So it's great that you can get there. It's usually about a 6-hour drive. So I'll get done with practice, and then I'll take off about 1 o'clock to get there for a 7 o'clock game or a 7:30 game. But the difficult part is getting back. So after the game is over with, it's obviously about 10 o'clock when you get done meeting and greeting and talking to people. And so then I hop in the car, and then I drive the 6 hours back because we got practice at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so it's a lot of coffee, 5-hour energy, a couple rest stops here and there.
I was going to say, I have driven a lot of miles by myself, not just riding the bus, but driven a lot of miles. I ride the bus a lot more these days. But sometimes, like driving back after playing at Jacksonville State and how long that drive is, it is a real factor about getting really tired behind the wheel, and that can be a little dangerous.
Yeah, and so I try to be smart about it, but I end up getting back here sometimes about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I don't even go back home. I just crash there in the office because I know I have to get up in a couple hours. But I'm usually, at the beginning of practice, I'm not really good, but then at the end, I'm fine. But then I got to usually go home and take a nap right after that because I haven't gotten any sleep. So
naps are critical, absolutely. How many times in the last month have you been in the state of Mississippi?
Too much, I would want to say there. But to me, it's Mondays is when they normally play their games. And so because of the way our schedule is set up that we play on Thursdays and Saturdays, Monday is a light day for us. So then also if I needed to, I can get back So it works out well that I can get to a game there and then get back. So there's other places that I end up going. Obviously, we don't just recruit Mississippi, but because of my ties there, and then obviously because they play on those Monday nights, it's really advantageous for me to get to those games.
We are going to talk with DQ Nicholas when we come back from this timeout. The Red Hawks Coaches Show at Wings, etc. DQ Nicholas joins us after this break. This is the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. on SEMO ESPN.
The sports bar, Wings, etc. and Cape and Jackson.
Don't forget, we'll be in the Jackson Wings, etc. location next Monday after the Red Hawks head out on a road trip. It's actually going to be a 4-game road trip. They will play at SIU Edwardsville on Thursday, the women first and then the men, and then it will be a doubleheader Saturday at Eastern Illinois before the Red Hawks the following week, next week, they will be headed on the Death Valley tour to Morehead State and Eastern Kentucky. We're happy to be joined by DQ Nicholas on the Coaches Show. What was on the menu for you today for lunch?
I just got some wings, barbecue wings.
Okay, so barbecue flavor.
Yes, sir.
All right, you're from Atlanta. Is barbecue big down there?
Wings is a big thing in Atlanta, so yeah, I eat wings a lot in Atlanta.
So what's your if you had to pick one food, what is your all-time favorite food?
I like breakfast food. So
Okay.
yeah, I like French toast. French toast. That's my.
So you're a Waffle House guy. Because they're all over the South, Waffle Houses.
It is, but I like IHOP.
Okay.
Yeah, I like IHOP.
IHOP guy?
Yeah.
You pancake guy?
I like pancakes.
Okay. You're from Atlanta. What was it like growing up in Atlanta?
To be honest with you, I'm originally from Minnesota. I was born in Minnesota, but then my sophomore year of high school, I moved to Atlanta with my dad. So
Okay.
yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Minnesota? Cold?
Yeah, it's cold up there in the wintertime. It gets really cold, but it was normal. I had a pretty good childhood. You know, my mom raised me right, so it was cool. Yeah.
You grow up a Vikings fan?
Yeah, my favorite player was Adrian Peterson. Yeah.
Well,
so,
you're obviously a big Vikings fan. So who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl, or do you have a rooting interest?
I wanted the Ravens to go because I like Lamar Jackson, but I'm gonna go with the Chiefs.
Did you play any football growing up?
No, I actually didn't.
Baseball?
I only play basketball.
So you were strictly basketball guy. So when did you know that you had a chance to maybe be a Division I basketball player?
Maybe like after my senior year or during my senior year of high school, I started. We went to state. We won state championship. My senior year in high school. So after that, and then I went prep school. And I just started getting recruited. I got better. So
Meadow Creek High School. You win a state championship. What was that like?
It was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had. It was a long season. One of my best seasons playing basketball. It was great. It was a good experience.
Boy, you are have you always been the most athletic player on your team?
One of them, definitely one of them. In high school, we had a player named Jameer. He was probably our most athletic, but I was up there with him. I was always the fastest on the team, though.
Fastest?
Yeah.
So when you guys did sprint drills, you were always first?
Always first, yeah.
All right. What is your vertical leap? We need to know because you can literally jump out of the gym.
We did a vertical thing in summertime. I think I got 50.
A 50. Did anybody have a better vertical than that?
Nah, I had the best one.
Alex Caldwell got a pretty good vertical.
He does. He definitely does. But
Sage has a pretty good vertical.
yeah, they do. They both do. But I'm number one.
All right. Who is the best dunker on the team? Because Nigel announced himself with authority Saturday night.
He definitely Nigel. He's up there, but me personally, I think I'm the best dunker.
Okay.
It just hasn't showed yet in the game, but it's gonna show.
All right, what's your favorite dunk, and how often do you guys work on dunks when you just you got some downtime?
My favorite dunk, I would probably have to say, I usually do it like a back scratcher. That's my go-to dunk. But if I had to do a flashy dunk, it'd probably be a windmill. And then we don't usually work on it, but probably because during season we kind of sore and banged up a little bit, so I don't feel as bouncy as usual in the off season. But
so close to an alley-oop in the game.
Yeah.
Alex threw you an alley-oop. What happened on that play?
I think who was guarding me? I think Tavion. He tipped the ball kind of and it went out of bounds, so I couldn't get like a full grip on it to put it in the basket. So
Now, was that a design play in the huddle? Because I think it came after a timeout. Was that a design play, and is that something that you and Alex or he's saying, okay, here it comes? Or, I mean, you guys just sometimes guys just make eye contact with each other, and that's the sign that, hey, let's go to the alley-oop.
Yeah, in practice a couple times we drew it up. Like one time in practice we drew up a play like that, and it worked. So we went to the huddle, and Coach Ray, he drew it up, and Alex threw it because he expects me to go get it because he throws me alley-oops in practice sometimes, and I'll go get it. But it just didn't work that time. So
How fun – well, I know obviously it's not fun to lose a basketball game. That was a tough loss on Saturday night. But how fun was that game? Because for the fans, that was fun to watch.
That was a great game. The energy was there. I really enjoyed it, the atmosphere. I would love for our fans to come out like that every night we play because it would help us a lot. But it was definitely a great game. We just couldn't come out on top.
Boy, how much do you work on your free throw shooting? Because you are a really good free throw shooter.
Thank you. I work on it all the time. Whenever I work out, I work on my free throws during the workout, and then after workout, I get up a lot of free throws, and then we do a lot of free throws after we do like walkthrough. So I work on my free throw pretty often.
I mean, we see how big free throws are. If Tevin Brown doesn't make those 2 free throws at the end of the game, you guys would have won that game. I mean, is there always kind of stressed importance on how big free throws are?
Yeah, definitely. Free throws, especially during the end of the game, you got to be able to knock down free throws when it comes down to times like that in the game. You just got to be clutch and knock them down.
Well, you have certainly been clutch. What was it like going to prep school? So you were in Minnesota, then you're in Atlanta, and then all of a sudden you're done with high school. When did you make the decision I'm going to play a year of prep school ball?
A little bit after my senior season finished, I talked to one of my AU coaches and told him I would like to go prep. So he hooked me up with my prep school coach, and in prep school it was a grind, I had to develop my game more, get a little stronger, and get ready for college. So I feel like going to prep school really helped me prepare for college, so I can come here and try to help out SEMO as much as possible. But it was definitely a grind. It helped me a lot, though.
What was it like in Scotland, Pennsylvania? That's where your prep school was.
Scotland, it was different, very different. It's like I felt like isolated. It was like in the middle of nowhere. But in the winter time, it was really cold, and yeah, it was different. Like people, it was just different because I'm in Atlanta, you know, it's the big city, and then I go to a place where, you know, people from Scotland, they never been to like big cities, or they're not used to anything outside of there. So it was very different.
Pennsylvania is known for a lot of Amish communities.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of Amish
Definitely. Whenever we would go like to Walmart to go and like to get groceries for our rooms back on campus and stuff, I did see like Amish people.
there? Is that the first time you ever saw a horse and buggy?
Yeah, definitely. It was the first time.
All right, you guys getting ready to go out on the road here for 2 games this week and 2 games next week. What is different about playing on the road versus playing at the Show Me Center?
Well, obviously the fans, they're against you, and you know the home team, they have the home court advantage. The big difference I would say though is the fans. They are yelling at you in the crowd, and they have their student section, and a lot of adversity, but you just gotta block that out and stay focused on the game.
All right, who do you room with on the road trips mostly?
My last roommate was Skylar Hogan.
Skylar. Now, Skylar's a father now. How about that?
Yeah, congrats to Skylar.
Isn't is that the cutest baby you've ever seen?
Yeah, she is.
Got to be really cute. Are you on social media?
Yeah, I am.
Where are you at? Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram and on Twitter.
Where?
My Instagram account is DNICKO11, and my
DNico11.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And my Twitter account is _DNIC4.
NIC4. All right.
Yes, sir.
We'll check you out on social media. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you Thursday in Edwardsville.
Thank you for having me.
All right. That's DQ Nicholas. We'll take one final timeout. Back to wrap it up with Coach Rick Ray when we return to Wings, etc. The Red Hawks Coaches Show on SEMO ESPN.
Next great event, EBOMD is now.
Those barbecue wings from Wings, etc. And do you have a go-to flavor for your wings, or do you like to mix it up, or what's the preference?
I'm a dry rub guy, so I'm always lemon pepper, lime pepper, anything like that. Any sort of thing that's dry rub, that's Cajun. I like that. So I don't like saucy wings.
I got
like
you.
Dry rub.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll go with the boneless, just so I don't have to get my fingers dirty.
I never gone boneless. I like bone in.
Bone in is the way to go.
Yep, drums preferably.
We're getting ready for a 4-game road swing here. You'll head to SIU Edwardsville on Thursday and Eastern Illinois Saturday. SIU Edwardsville, just one conference win thus far, but believe it or not, it was at literally, if you go back the last 5 years, the toughest place to win in the Ohio Valley Conference is the Curb Event Center in Nashville against the Belmont Bruins, and that's where SIU Edwardsville got its win.
Yeah, I actually started watching them yesterday. Watched our Murray State game and clipped that up for our guys to show them tomorrow morning. But then started getting into SIUE. And they present some problems with all the ball screens. I mean, most things now, it's always involving ball screens, and they've got a couple guys that can really make plays off the ball screen. Their little point guard really does a good job of getting into the teeth of the defense and then making decisions. And they're really, really good in transition. And so when they get hot and they're pushing the basketball, I can see why they would give a team like Belmont problems, because Belmont usually just packs it in. And so I thought they did some good things defensively against Belmont when I watched that. But at the end of the day, I just thought Belmont missed a ton of shots that they normally
I was going
make.
to say, it was Belmont just not hitting shots that night?
Yeah, they did some good things defensively, SIUE, but I thought more than anything, those shots that Belmont normally knocks down throughout the whole course of the game, they just missed them.
You know, we were at Austin Peay when SIU Edwardsville won that game, and I was talking to a couple of fans, and they were watching the end of the game on their phone and said, boy, Belmont made a couple of critical mistakes at the end of the game.
Yes, really uncharacteristic for them, because that's usually their strength, is their decision making. So anytime you're in a situation where they're down and they've got to make plays, they usually make the right play. And I thought uncharacteristically they made some plays that's, they normally don't make. They always usually make the right play.
No offense to the new coach at Belmont, but Rick Byrd does not lose at home to SIU Edwardsville. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and I always hate this, that Rick Byrd was one of the best mid-major coaches in college basketball history, and that just bugs me to no end. I'm like, no, he was one of the best coaches in the NCAA, period. It has nothing to do with the so-called level.
How surprising was it to you that he just up and retired? Maybe people knew it was coming, but it seemed like it was a surprise to a lot of people.
Well, in coaching fraternities, we're probably worse than teenage girls with the rumors and gossips about what's going to happen there. But I had heard some rumblings about that this is going to be his last year, and they were prepared for it. But still was a little surprised, because he still was having a tremendous amount of success. It's hard for anybody in any profession to go out on top. And so most time there's some sort of a demise that goes into somebody retiring or letting go. So it was surprising in the fact that he was still at the top of his game and he decided to step away from it.
And it's kind of cool when a longtime head coach can go out on a high note. I mean, things had kind of started to slip a little at Austin Peay with Dave Luce, and he got to have that magical run and win the OVC tournament right near the end before his retirement.
Yeah, and like most things, when you're talking about sports, we never really know when to go out, whether it's the player or the coach.
Yeah, well, and athletes too. I mean, why Muhammad Ali fought Trevor Berbick, I will never know after the Larry Holmes fight. But, sometimes with the great athletes, I mean, sometimes they hold on too long, right?
Yeah, the boxers is the most notorious about knowing when to retire, retiring, and coming back and things like that. But I think it happens with a ton of sports people. I mean, nobody wanted to see some of the guys, the iconic players, end up in different uniforms, knowing it's probably time to hang it up. Let's go out on a high note here.
Yeah, it seemed weird to see Joe Namath wearing a Rams uniform, right?
Right. Or even like Joe Montana coming from the 49ers to the Chiefs, although he did have a couple productive years, but, it was probably wanted to see him go out on a high note.
Prior to last year, the last time they were in the AFC Championship was '93 with Joe Montana, so he did have some success with the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I tell you what, the one thing that always came across with a guy like him was just how, under pressure, it didn't bother him at all. And so I know my old coach, he always say, football, they got it easy. He says you just take those cool, calm, collected guys and you put them on offense. And he said you look at those guys in the eyes that look at you crazy. He said you put them on defense.
That's why they called him Joe Cool.
Yes.
That legendary story about the Super Bowl where they beat the Bengals and they're in the huddle and this is the final drive. And they're in the huddle, and he's like, hey, look, there's John Candy on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, having a guy like that just that understands and then gets it, but it's also different. I mean, they say in a huddle, basketball-wise, like Kevin Garnett is just like totally just off his rocker all the time talking, and you're trying to get him calmed down. But that's him. He needs to be in that moment talking all the time, where you got a guy who's the exact opposite, like a Ray Allen in that same huddle that's not paying any attention to any of those things. He's just like, hey, I'm going to go out here cool, calm, and collected and make plays.
So since Belmont joined the OVC, they were the dominant program, and Murray State's championships started to dwindle. The last couple of years, though, Murray State has had the resurgence with John Morant. They've won back-to-back titles. It's Belmont and Murray in Murray on Thursday. Who you got?
Well, that's difficult to say. I would think that since you said they're in Murray.
In Murray.
I would say Murray just because of the home court advantage and being there. And I think also just the physicality that Murray State's front line plays with may pose a problem. Now, the way Belmont plays and how prolific they are shooting threes, they can always give you a problem once they start getting hot. But I think if Murray does what I think they're going to do, which is going to try to pound them inside, I think that'll cause a problem for them. With them being at home, I would give a little bit of an advantage to Murray State then.
What's the over-under on personal fouls, 50?
With those two teams, it won't be that.
All right, it's going to be a road trip at SIU Edwardsville Thursday and Eastern Illinois Saturday. We'll see you in Edwardsville, Coach. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
That's Coach Rick Ray. Thanks to DQ Nicholas for joining us a little bit earlier as well. Stay tuned. ESPN Radio coming up. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. So long from Wings, etc.
Nothing but